Hi, and welcome everyone. I am Kerry Siggins, host of In the KIoTchen, Conversations on IoT with Breadware. I'm the CEO of Breadware, and today I have Skip Howard with me, founder and CEO of Spacee. So thanks so much for joining me today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. This is going to be fun.
We're going to have a great time. All right, so give us a little bit of background. Who are you and why did you start Spacee?
I am a serial entrepreneur, right? Started off creating internet-based applications before that was a thing in the late 90s, and then took that, went to work for Ross Perot Jr. for a few years, started Spacee a while back, got into computer vision, didn't really understand that was a niche of artificial intelligence, and took that and grew it. So that's what we're doing.
That's fantastic. And how long ago did you start Spacee?
So Spacee, we formed the Delaware Corporation in 2016, but really the technology, I've been working on it for years before that.
Yeah. Great. And has Ross Perot Jr. been a support of all of this when you went to work for him? Did he know what you were going to go do after that?
Well, I didn't know what I was going to do after that, right? But no, that guy is amazing. I only have the nicest things to say about him. He's actually really brilliant, and he surrounds himself with a brilliant team. And so Perot Jane is the entity that they use to invest in us, and we have other wonderful investors too. But they have been very supportive of us. Could not have asked for better.
Yeah, that's great. Good. Well, I love your mission to fundamentally disrupt and revolutionize inventory management and how organizations interact with their customers. It's so good. So what drives that mission?
Well, the supply chain issues that we have right now are they're kind of systemic issues that we're seeing the fruits of a lot of problems bubbling up to the surface. And so originally it was just opportunistic. Like a client asked us, "Hey, can you go solve this problem? We see that you can do these really cool interactive things, but if you can do that, can't you just count what's there?" And we're like, "Probably." Right? And we went to go do that. And then we actually took a look at the problems of what are the supply chain problems. It's not just can you go count inventory, right? You have labor issues you have to deal with. You have to be able to order the right amount of things. Over ordering is a problem. We're filling up landfills with product that people don't buy. We have massive demand on products we can't get enough of, and there's just no kind of equilibrium. So it kind of starts with measuring what you're doing, and if you can granularly measure what you have on a shelf in real time, you can affect the entire chain all the way back to the beginning, right? And so the efficiencies that one can achieve, are just insanely high. And so that's and efficiencies equal dollars for large organizations and savings for customers. So it's just a massive win all the way around. And now with labor shortages and labor problems, it's not even should we do this? It's we have to do this because there's not enough people in the workforce that even exist to go solve these problems.
So how does the Deming technology actually work, and how does it leverage IoT?
Sure. So I have some samples here, right? So this is a little, yeah, this is it. This is our robot on a shelf. So you have to imagine you're in a giant supermarket, right? This is the simplest way to describe it. And we put these rails on the very top shelf. And inside that rail, this little guy just drives up and down, back and forth automatically every 20 minutes, every day. And this little eye right here is scanning across the aisle, all the shelves, right? Everything. And from that, we're able to infer a depth field, which means we can do counts. We can actually do image recognition and object classification, so we know what we're looking at. We have price and label integrity, planogram integrity, all of these things that can be generated from just knowing what's there. And it's not perfect real time. It's every 20 minutes. There's this like kind of price to real time ratio you have to achieve. But this guy allows us to do all of that. I'll talk about AI here in a second. Collect data in such a unique way and hits the price point that makes sense for retailers that it really moves the needle for them. And that covers probably 95% of most stores. In inside, outside of that 95%, we do have these shelf cameras, right? So this is maybe another 3 to 4%, and then we have these little lidar sensors, which is the last kind of 1% of what a camera can't see. So all of that makes an ecosystem um, that we're able to use. These are IoT devices. They use very small onboard processing. I shouldn't say small. They use some pre-processing on board, right?
Mhm.
And then they transfer it to a server on the edge to actually do the heavy lifting. Technically, it gets cheaper the longer the aisles are because it's a single camera per aisle, right? So true IoT, true edge solution to solve some of these problems.
So this might be a completely dumb question, but do you have to have
Oh,
one on like each shelf? So is it running along the
yeah,
shelf or is it running like this? How does that work?
yeah. So if that's the rail, right? Sorry, this is a plastic
Yeah.
version, right?
Okay.
You would put one on not every shelf, just one per half aisle. So one where they're facing
Okay.
each other per aisle. And then inside of that, this guy just drives up and down, back and forth. And he
Got it.
scans.
Got
You
it.
have to think like cameras are like
Sees the
cones
whole
of
thing.
light, right?
Yeah.
It scans
Yep.
everything. So I'll give you
Yep.
another little tidbit. In AI, it's like a pyramid. If you can get your data collection right, if you have good algorithms, you can actually produce far superior results. So we have something that's moving in a plane. It's a moving image. It can look around people, so you're GDPR compliant. You're not like people in the way don't matter. It's
Yeah.
very, very near real time, updating websites, all of that kind of stuff. All of that matters. And then we had to invent a lot of technology, not just in the hardware, but in the software. And all of that together kind of makes this possible.
Yeah. So cool. Thank you for sharing that. That's amazing. I bet it's going to be a game changer for retail stores.
Yeah, and we're getting worldwide adoption, which is awesome.
Yeah.
We're actually scaling around the world, so very excited. Lots of competition because this has been a known problem for like 40 years. Lots
Yeah,
of
of course.
competition. Yeah.
Totally. Totally. Interesting. Good. Okay, now I have to ask because this isn't how you
Yeah,
started Spacey, right? Because Spacey started with an interactive touch experience, right? So
that's
tell us
right.
about this. I believe it's called your hover technology, and how does it work? And then you have to tell us the story of how all of this converged.
Okay. All right. I'll give you the real story, everybody.
Okay, yeah, let's do that. We
So
all want the real story.
the real story. So we were at, I think it was Coca-Cola. And in fact, let me back up a little bit before I tell you that.
Yeah.
So, yes, we have hover touch technology where we can make any two-dimensional or three-dimensional surface interactive by projecting a touch screen on it. So, if you've ever been to the mall and you like kick the virtual soccer balls or play a game on the floor, similar to that, but let's talk about like 6 pixels of accuracy in 3D, right? And so, very, very difficult to do. The first project we did is we turned a car into a touch screen. It's a highly reflective surface, three-dimensional, and you're able to explore. And if you want your car back, you just turn it off, and there's nothing installed on the car, right? So very exciting. And then that led to going into retail, making in-store experiences, turning walls into unbreakable touch screens, right? There's a
Mhm.
whole reason behind that. I'm happy to get into. But one of the solutions we came up with was if we can recognize products. So for Coca-Cola, we created a Coke bottle, a Coke Light in Europe is what they call it, and a Coke Zero. And so basically, it's lift and learn. When you this was a few years ago, right? When you pick it up, an ad displays because it knows what you picked up, right? And so it's
Yeah.
now telling you, hey, this is about Coke, and you should feel good, and all of that fun stuff. Their marketing department spent a lot of money making. We're just reusing it, right? And so we're talking to the person that's running that, and she's like, yeah, 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 but what if I put it back over here? I'm like, well, then pick it up again. So then she picked it up, she goes, how did you know I moved it? I was like, well, because you had to recognize it. You're talking about dealing with the public. You can't just like assume it's always going to be in one spot. You have to survive how the public's going to handle this. So we recognize that's a Coke, and the interactive zone kind of just moves with it, right? Easy.
Wow.
So she goes, wait a minute. If you can do that, come with me. So we walk around. This is like a mock store Coca-Cola had, and it was uh, it was a grocery store, and she goes, if you can tell us what's on the shelf that's worth a lot of money to us, do you think you can do that? And we're like, maybe we could try, right? We get back, and we're talking to a Coke competitor, right? I probably shouldn't have used their names, but here we are. Let's say their number one competitor, and they happen to sell potato chips. And so they're like, hey, can you tell us what's on and off the shelf? And we're like, yeah, that's odd. This is kind of funny. So we went and we kind of built a couple different products at the same time, and got high accuracy, like high 90s that you're not supposed to be able to get doing this stuff. We're breaking theoretical limits with the way we're doing this. And it took a while, right? It took a while. So we ended up taking part of our technology stack, showing it to a client asking us if we could build on it. And really, that's it. I wish I could tell you I had some master plan and, I saw the vision from the beginning and then we're going to do supply chain and all of that. But really, we just listen to the client. And then once you listen to their needs, you have to try to understand why are they asking for that, not exactly what they want, right? And that's when you get into the research, you're like, oh my gosh, this supply chain has problems, and that, which we just talked about, right? This is a real big deal. This is where we want to be. Yeah, this is where we want to be. So it kind of went from opportunistic to there's an actual problem we want to solve, right? There's a big problem. So we took the needs of the clients and several other clients, by the way, not just one, and we developed this, and that was our first pass. I'm sorry, we developed the on-shelf cameras, found major problems in doing that. We moved to the roaming robot, the rover is what this is called, the rover version, and solved a lot of problems in doing that, and we're able to do that. So one last piece, we're a computer vision company, right? Computer vision has a symbiotic relationship between the world and the physical world. You have to get the physical world build correct. So the IoT components, whether it's how it moves, the field of vision, for example, the resolution, the lighting, all of that kind of stuff matters when you're going to get data acquisition so you can write algorithms on top of it. And so because we know this world really well, we were able to kind of pivot to this quickly, and we knew what would work and what wouldn't work, and sure enough, we're proven right by customer orders. So that's exciting.
What a great story. I'm so glad you shared that with us. And I love it because, I think so many entrepreneurs find themselves in that situation of going in one direction and then pivoting and adding tremendous value in a way that they never imagined. I don't think very many people have a master plan, and if they do, they're probably lying. So I appreciate you sharing that, and I think it's really cool. And I love that you bring up, improving the customer experience, because that is what IoT really does, is it improves the customer experience. So not only are you improving your customer's experience because of your technology, but you're improving the end customer, right? The consumer's experience, because they're going to have stocked shelves and not miss out on the things that they want to buy. And it's a more aesthetic shopping experience, right? I hate going to the grocery store and having like the shelves half empty. I don't know that the rover can fix that, but that just might be the supply chain issue. But I think that's a really important key, is focusing on that customer experience.
Some of it is like unstoppable in today's climate, right? But some of it isn't. And even knowing the difference is highly valuable. In fact, I'll tell you a really simple new problem COVID kind of created. When most people started moving to online purchases, and they call it BOPIS, buy online, pick up in store, or delivery. It's same thing. They're selling you items that they believe are on a shelf. They don't actually know, because they're using these stores as fulfillment centers. And so how many times have you ordered groceries and like you get your order right? Usually it's a text for substitution, or they just do it, or it's like never correct. And you can alleviate a lot of that frustration just by updating the websites with what's actually available to ship, like in this very near real time. So you don't have to guess anymore. And that's really what an algorithm is. It's a guess. Predictive analytics is guessing. We can know.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it. I love it. What a great insider scoop there, right? I just assumed it was
Yeah,
somebody picked the wrong stuff off the shelf. No, it's just not there. Yeah,
yeah.
amazing, amazing. All right,
There's
so now before
a
I
lot
ask
of.
you, yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure.
Go
All
ahead.
right, so before I ask you the next question, I do want to go back to your unbreakable touch screens, right? So there has to be a story there.
Sure.
So tell us the what's behind untouchable, unbreakable touch screens.
Yeah, well, you're just using other surfaces. You're not
Yeah.
installing a television. So the simplest example, I talked about our touch car, but a wall. If we
Yeah.
could project light onto a wall and we can point a camera at a wall, and there's a library of cameras, right? It's all off the shelf equipment. The software
Yeah.
can actually pick up where your finger is and what you're touching versus not touching. And because COVID came around, we knew there was a certain percent of the population that didn't want to touch anything. So because we own our own AI algos, we could take millimeters of air that were interactive and blow it out to feet or meters, right? And that's how you get hover touch, because you can hover or touch your what you're doing, right? And so it's all just a computer vision algorithm that we developed. It's not an SDK from some system. We've have lots of patents on this stuff issued from a long time ago. Um, and what we found is, I'll just say, for example, there is a retailer, a very large retailer on the United States that tried to put iPads out, or other touchscreens out, I should say, right? And they had a replacement rate of 100% every 30 days because they're damaged, they're
Touching.
broken, they're stolen, right? They're all made with capacitive film, so you can break them, and they're unhygienic. So there's a need to have a touchscreen that can survive kind of heavy duty usage, and
Humans, right?
human being, kid, and everything.
Yeah.
Um, so that we found that, even though the vision was to really come and try to make these sci-fi movies come to life, and that was the whole goal. That was, oh my gosh, we can make the world interact with you and make things responsive to you without putting glasses on. We call it meta without glasses, right? You can have that happen. Well, it turns out you can't just be cool. You actually have to provide value, right?
Hmm.
So we check that box.
Yeah.
There's a reason, an ROI to the technology, not just it's neat, right? And that's super important with any tech, including IoT. It can't just be neat. You actually have to have a payback period of, like a year if it's a 5-year project, stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. With Breadware, we help our clients bring IoT products to life, and we've definitely had a couple of people come and with us with ideas on products they want to build, and we've said, I just don't think this is a good idea. Like that's not useful, right? Like we shouldn't just make things IoT enabled for no reason. And so I really appreciate you saying that, because I think that is really important as we're looking at the future. I mean, IoT, we've just started to touch the surface, and it is transforming how we do things, and it will continue to do so, but it has to be useful. It has to be helpful in making our lives better. Otherwise, we're not going to pay for it.
Yeah, and honestly, it's not just 2 boxes; it's like 100 boxes, and you have to check a
Yeah.
hundred out of 100
Yeah.
for this to work, for
Yeah.
any real solution to work. So AI is not
Yeah.
going to change that, right? We
Yeah.
still has to make sense.
Yeah, agreed. Agreed. So, how do you see IoT evolving in the context of AI and computer vision, especially through the lens of, really helping humanity, helping productivity, help us solving some of these world's toughest problems?
Yeah, um, I think it's going to be critical that anybody listening that is developing anything, you have to have sustainability in mind. We do.
Yeah.
Like our little robots take 1 watt of energy. You're going to have to
Yeah.
do that, because I think, and I say that because IoT is only going to exponentially grow. It feels a whole lot like computer vision and IoT. It feels a lot like 1996 when the internet was coming out. Yeah, there's a lot of people doing it, but you have no idea what's coming. When we
Yeah.
start embedding sensors everywhere, and things just become smart, and you have 5G coming out, right, which has a whole nother value proposition to it. There's It's going to be doing things you can't even imagine today, right? So I from the simplest things like smart fridges and smart washers, yeah, but that's like low hanging fruit. Just imagine
Yeah.
digital twins are exploding now, self driving cars, self flying cars, right? All that's using sensors that are little IoT sensors. The processing may end up like to be seen. In my opinion is I don't know if it'll all be onboard processing to do all of this. I don't know if I believe that. I still think the cloud plays a major role in processing quite a bit of what comes off of devices, or edge devices will play a major role. But it will just grow exponentially. So the problems it solves already, we know we're solving labor issues, right?
Yeah.
You are going to see, we talked about sustainability, but just access to
Yeah.
things. I think you're going to see some of that improve. Affordability is going to come way, way, way down. So more people will have the ability to participate in, being connected and things like that. I mean, cell phones already do a pretty good job of that, but just like we're talking pennies, not hundreds of dollars. That's where we're headed, and everybody wants it. Like everybody's building towards it. It's not like I'm like, you know, if you just look at what TI, what Apple, what Amazon, what all these big companies are doing, they're all building it, right? So it's
Yeah.
not like you have to guess.
Yeah. 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 Beautifully said. Thank you. And so with all of that being said, what's on the horizon for you? You've done this pivot from the hover touch to the Deming technology. What's on the radar for you?
It's not a pivot like we abandoned something. So just FYI,
Right.
we are still selling that quite
Okay.
quickly. But we are going to be growing. Like my goal, and if you're an entrepreneur, you kind of got to be a little delusional, right? I feel like you have to be a little bit. So my goal would be to kind of be the computer vision company one day, like where there's just so many lines of business in that. We'll see, right? Um, but yeah, we have there's competition in micro markets and frictionless checkouts. That's like kind of the easy stuff to see. I could see us doing a whole lot more in digital twins, and definitely more in supply chain. We're already having some of that in the pipe. And honestly, I mean, embedding this tech in consumer products, that's a step we're looking at. This is a few years down the road, um, and a whole lot of more other stuff. But I'm not going to talk about everything, right? Just some.
No, no, that's good. I think you gave us a good picture of the innovation that you guys have. I love it. And I love the entrepreneurial have to be delusional comment. I actually just interviewed Elon Musk a couple of days ago,
Wow.
and we had a very similar conversation around thinking big and thinking, I can do things that nobody thinks possible. Doesn't mean it's easy, right? I mean, what he said specifically, like, yeah, the concept of like going to Mars, like, okay, yeah, but like it's really, really, really hard to do that. And people think I'm delusional for wanting to do it. So anyway, I just appreciate that you said that because he shared something very similar with me.
Yeah. I mean, you got to think big. You're guaranteed not to go to Mars if you don't try and you don't think about how to do it. So
Yep.
you got to try. Right?
Yep, I agree. I agree. Awesome. All right. Well, I know our time is almost up, so I have one more question for you. After everything that you've learned as an innovator, entrepreneur, founder, what advice do you have for leaders who are looking to develop IoT and AI-enabled products and just kill it in the marketplace?
Oh man. Well, I've got some advice, but I would say it's going to take a lot longer than you think.
Yeah.
It'll take a lot longer than you think. There's prototyping tools I highly recommend you start with. Right? You can get answers very quickly. Just because it's IoT doesn't mean you can't get customer validation. You have to go
Yeah.
get customer validation. Make sure you're solving the right problems. Iterate as fast as possible before you lock it in and make your commercializable version. That would be my recommendation. But
Great advice. Great advice. In fact, Breadware, we just launched our first product, which is a speed to market product accelerator that it gets you 80% of the way there. It takes out time, it takes out
yes,
risk so that you can say, is this going to figure, can I get a product to my customer sooner to figure out if this is going to work or not? So,
awesome.
so thank you for for
there you
that.
go.
This is exactly in agreement.
I swear we didn't plan this, everybody.
Wonderful. All right. And how can people find you and Spacee?
Yeah, well, you can LinkedIn me anytime. Go to spacey.com, and I promise we had this name picked out before SpaceX was really doing stuff. It's been a while. But go to spacee.com. Find me on LinkedIn, Skip Howard. It's the best way to go.
Awesome. All right, Skip, this was so much fun. Thank you so much for coming on the show today. I really appreciate it.
All right, thanks. Thank you so much.
All right, bye-bye.